Daniel Harper did not expect the afternoon to feel so heavy, yet as he stepped into the small cafe on Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, the air seemed thick with something unspoken, something waiting. The bell above the door rang softly as he entered, shaking rain from his coat, scanning the room filled with quiet conversations and the scent of roasted coffee beans. He chose a corner table near the window, the same one he used to sit at years ago with his late wife, and that memory alone almost made him leave, but he stayed because his daughter Emma had asked him to. She had stood in the kitchen that morning, hopeful yet nervous, twisting a strand of her blonde hair around her finger the way she used to do as a child when asking for something important. "Dad, can you just meet him once?" she had said gently. Him. Ryan. The young man who had slowly become the reason she smiled at her phone, the reason she hummed while cooking, the reason she seemed both brighter and more distant at the same time. Daniel loved his daughter more than his own comfort, so he had agreed, but now, sitting alone with a cup of black coffee growing cold in his hands, he questioned whether he was ready to share space in her life with someone else. He had raised Emma mostly on his own after losing his wife to illness when Emma was just 8 years old, and every scraped knee, every school project, every late-night fever had belonged to him and him alone. He had learned to braid hair badly, to attend dance recitals without missing a step, to answer questions about heartbreak and growing up even when his own heart still carried quiet grief. Emma was not just his daughter, she was the center of his world, the proof that love could survive loss. The cafe door opened again, letting in a quick breeze and a tall young man with careful eyes. Daniel recognized him immediately from the photos Emma had shown him. Ryan Walker looked exactly as she had described, simple gray sweater, clean-cut hair, hands slightly tense at his sides as he searched the room. When their eyes met, Ryan offered a respectful nod and walked over, each step measured, as if he understood the weight of this meeting. "Mr. Harper?" he asked politely, his voice steady but soft. Daniel gestured to the chair across from him without smiling. "Sit," he said, keeping his tone neutral. Ryan sat, placing his phone face down on the table as if to show full attention. The waitress came, took his order, and left. Silence filled the space between them, not awkward but tight, like a rope pulled too far. Daniel studied him openly. He expected confidence, maybe even arrogance, but what he saw instead was sincerity mixed with nerves. Ryan wrapped his hands around his coffee cup once it arrived, inhaling slowly before speaking. "I appreciate you meeting me," he began. Daniel leaned back slightly. "You wanted to talk?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, sir. I did." There was a pause, and Daniel could almost hear his own heartbeat. "I care about Emma," Ryan said plainly, looking directly at him. No dramatic speech, no exaggerated emotion. Just a simple truth. Daniel did not respond right away. He had imagined many versions of this conversation, most of them confrontational, but this felt different. "Caring is easy," Daniel replied after a moment. "Staying is harder." Ryan absorbed that without defense. "I agree," he said quietly. "That's why I'm here." The rain outside tapped against the window, blurring the world into gray streaks. Daniel remembered sitting in this same cafe decades ago telling Emma's mother that he loved her. He had been young, hopeful, certain. Life had tested that certainty, but he had stayed until the very end. The memory softened him slightly, though he didn't show it. "Emma means everything to me," Daniel said firmly. "She's been through enough." Ryan nodded. "I know some of her story. She told me about her mom. She told me how you were there for everything." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly, protective instinct rising. "And what did she tell you about herself?" Ryan smiled faintly. "That she's afraid of loving too much. Afraid it might not last." Those words caught Daniel off guard because they sounded like his own fears reflected back at him. He had tried so hard to shield Emma from pain that perhaps he had also passed on his caution. She deserves something steady, Ryan continued. I'm not here to take her away from you. I just want the chance to stand beside her. Daniel searched his face for signs of dishonesty and found none. Ryan's hands were still, his eyes clear. He wasn't trying to impress, he was trying to be understood. You're young, Daniel said. Feelings change. Ryan didn't flinch. Maybe feelings grow, he answered calmly. But values don't. I was raised to show up. To keep my word. The simplicity of that answer lingered. Daniel felt something shift, not approval yet, but curiosity. This wasn't a boy bragging about love. This was a young man asking for trust without demanding it. Are you in love with her? Daniel asked suddenly. Ryan did not hesitate. Yes. The certainty in his voice surprised him again. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady. Outside, the rain began to ease, the clouds thinning slightly as if the world itself was taking a breath. Daniel realized this meeting was not about control. It was about understanding the man who now held a piece of his daughter's heart. He looked at Ryan differently now, seeing not competition but possibility. If you hurt her, Daniel began slowly, it won't just affect her. Ryan nodded before he finished. I know. That's why I won't treat this lightly. There was no challenge in his tone, only commitment. The cafe grew quieter as the lunch crowd faded, leaving only the hum of the espresso machine and the soft clink of dishes in the background. Daniel felt the tension inside him slowly untangle, thread by thread. He had come prepared to defend, to question, to test. Instead, he found himself listening. Really listening. For the first time since Emma had mentioned Ryan's name, Daniel felt less fear and more reflection. Love was not something he could control for her. It was something she would choose. And maybe, just maybe, she had chosen someone who understood that love was not about grand gestures but about staying when things were ordinary and hard. As they sat across from each other, two men connected by one young woman's heart, Daniel realized this afternoon would matter more than he expected. Because it wasn't just about whether Ryan was good enough. It was about whether Daniel was ready to let his daughter grow beyond the safe circle he had built around her. And as Ryan met his gaze without looking away, Daniel sensed that this conversation was only the beginning of something that would change all of them in ways none of them fully understood yet. Daniel had always believed he understood sacrifice, but sitting across from Ryan in that quiet Portland cafe, he realized he did not fully understand what it meant to slowly let go. The afternoon light shifted through the window, softer now, and the noise of the street faded into a low hum, leaving space for words that felt heavier than before. Daniel's mind drifted through years of memory in seconds. Emma at 5, running into his arms after preschool, Emma at 13, crying over her first heartbreak, Emma at 17, standing tall at graduation, searching for him in the crowd before anyone else. He had been her constant. He had been the one who stayed when life changed without warning. That role had shaped him, given him purpose, and now this young man sat across from him speaking gently about loving her too. It unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. Ryan seemed to notice the shift in Daniel's silence and leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but sincere. She talks about you all the time, he said. Not just about things you've done, but about who you are. Daniel didn't respond at first. Praise made him uncomfortable. She says you taught her that love is not loud, Ryan continued. It's steady. It shows up every day. That sentence landed deeply. Daniel had never tried to teach lessons about love, He had simply survived and raised his daughter the best way he could. She gives you a lot of credit, Ryan added with a small smile. Daniel exhaled slowly. She shouldn't measure her future by my past, he said. Life is unpredictable. Ryan nodded thoughtfully. I know it is. That's why I don't take her lightly. There was something grounded in the way Ryan spoke, not dramatic, not rushed. He wasn't trying to win an argument, he was building a quiet case with honesty. Daniel studied his face again, looking for cracks in confidence or signs of immaturity, but all he saw was focus. Do you understand what she's been through? Daniel asked. Ryan's expression softened. I know she lost her mom young. I know she's careful with her heart because she's seen how quickly things can change. And I know she carries that quietly. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Those were truths not everyone noticed. Emma smiled easily, laughed freely, but she protected her deeper feelings. She had inherited Daniel's strength, and maybe his fear too. She thinks loving someone fully means risking everything, Ryan said quietly. I don't blame her. Daniel looked out the window at the wet pavement reflecting the gray sky. He had tried to protect her from that fear, yet maybe he had passed it on without meaning to. I'm not trying to replace you, Ryan said carefully, pulling Daniel's attention back. I know I can't. And I wouldn't want to. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly, but Ryan continued before tension could grow. I just want to be someone she can build with. Someone who stands beside her, not in front of her. That distinction mattered more than Ryan probably knew. Daniel had seen relationships fail because of ego, because of competition, because one person wanted control instead of partnership. Ryan's words suggested something different, balance. You're young, Daniel said again, though his tone was less sharp this time. You think you know what staying means. Ryan didn't argue. Maybe I don't know everything, he admitted. But I know what commitment looks like. My parents have been married 30 years. They taught me that love isn't about feelings alone. It's about choice. Choice. Daniel respected that word. Feelings could fade, shift, grow uncertain. Choice required intention. And if things get hard? Daniel pressed. Ryan held his gaze. They will get hard. That's life. But walking away would be easy. I don't want easy. The simplicity of that answer left Daniel momentarily speechless. He had expected rehearsed lines or emotional promises. Instead, he was hearing measured truth. The cafe door opened briefly as another customer left, letting in a cool breeze that brushed past their table. Daniel felt the air shift, and with it, something inside him softened. You care about her, he said, more statement than question. Yes, Ryan replied without hesitation. I care about her future too. I don't want to waste her time. That sentence caught Daniel's attention. Many young people lived in the moment, careless about long-term consequences. But Ryan was thinking ahead. She deserves stability, Ryan continued. She deserves someone who won't disappear when life changes. Daniel swallowed slowly. He had spent years making sure Emma never felt abandoned. The idea that someone else might share that responsibility both relieved and unsettled him. Are you afraid? Daniel asked suddenly. Ryan smiled faintly. Of you? A little. Daniel almost laughed despite himself. Of losing her? Daniel clarified. Ryan's expression turned serious. Yes. Because she matters. But I won't let fear make me careless. There was maturity in that answer, a recognition that love included risk. Without letting risk control decisions. Daniel felt his defenses lowering, not completely, but enough to see Ryan as more than just a boyfriend. He saw him as a young man trying to prove himself not with loud declarations but with steady words. "She doesn't need someone to save her," Ryan said quietly. "She's strong on her own. I just want to support her dreams." Daniel noticed the shift in language: support, not rescue. Partnership, not ownership. It echoed the kind of love he had once shared with his wife, a love built on teamwork rather than control. For a moment, grief flickered through him, sharp but brief, followed by gratitude that Emma might experience something similar. "If I trust you," Daniel said slowly, "that trust won't come back easily if broken." Ryan nodded without fear. "I understand." There was no dramatic pause, no exaggerated emotion. Just acceptance of responsibility. Daniel realized this conversation was no longer about testing Ryan. It was about confronting his own fear of stepping back. Emma was not a child anymore. She was a woman choosing her own path, and part of loving her meant allowing that choice. The rain had completely stopped now, sunlight pushing faintly through thinning clouds. Daniel felt the weight on his chest ease slightly. He still loved his daughter fiercely. That would never change. But maybe loving her also meant believing she had chosen wisely. Ryan sat there patiently, not rushing for approval, not demanding validation. That patience impressed Daniel more than any speech could have. For the first time that afternoon, Daniel felt something close to cautious hope. Maybe this young man wasn't trying to take Emma away. Maybe he was trying to build something with her, something steady and respectful. And as the quiet cafe held their conversation like a secret between generations, Daniel realized that the hardest part of being a father was not protecting your child from every storm. It was trusting that someone else could stand beside her when you were no longer the only shelter she needed. The cafe had grown quiet as the afternoon wore on, the soft hum of the espresso machine and occasional clink of cups the only sounds around them, giving their conversation a strange intimacy, as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Daniel watched Ryan closely, noting the calm in his posture, the steadiness in his voice, the way he spoke about Emma with a careful respect that caught Daniel off guard. Ryan leaned forward slightly, his fingers tracing the rim of his coffee cup as if measuring the weight of his words. "I know Emma can be careful with people," he said quietly, "like she's afraid happiness won't last. She holds back because she's learned early that life can take what you love without warning." Daniel's chest tightened at the truth in that statement. He had spent years shielding Emma from pain, only to realize that in some ways, she had inherited his own cautious heart. "She worries too much sometimes," Daniel admitted, his voice low, a touch of weariness in it. "She's seen what loss feels like. She remembers what it's like to hope and then have that hope shattered." Ryan nodded, eyes softening. "I don't want to rush her. I just want to be someone who shows her love can be safe, that it can last when someone chooses to stand beside you." Daniel studied him, noticing the clarity in Ryan's words, the sincerity that wasn't performative or rehearsed. There was no arrogance, no need to impress, there was only understanding and patience. "She doesn't trust easily," Daniel said, his voice reflecting years of watching Emma navigate the world cautiously. "She guards herself. She fears being hurt, and sometimes that makes her seem distant." Ryan nodded again, leaning back slightly, his gaze thoughtful. "I see that. I understand why. And I want to give her reasons to trust me," slowly, without pressuring her. "She deserves that." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He had always hoped that anyone who loved Emma would respect her as she was, not try to change her or rush her into feelings she wasn't ready to face. Ryan's words suggested he already understood that principle deeply, and that was rare. "You're patient," Daniel said carefully, a hint of admiration creeping into his tone. Ryan's faint smile acknowledged the observation without pride. I've learned patience isn't about waiting, it's about understanding. It's about being present when someone needs you, even if they're not ready to lean on you yet. Daniel reflected on the countless nights he had sat awake while Emma cried over trivial and serious heartbreaks alike, always present, even when she didn't want to speak. That same quality in Ryan made him pause and consider the young man differently. "And what about you?" Daniel asked. "Can you handle the uncertainty? The possibility that she might push you away or fear being close?" Ryan looked Daniel directly in the eyes. "Yes. Because love isn't about control. It's about choosing to stay, even when it's hard. I know she has walls, but I don't see them as obstacles. I see them as parts of who she is, and I want to honor that, not break it down." Daniel's throat tightened. Those were words he had never heard lightly spoken about his daughter. Many young men rushed in, swept away by charm or infatuation, but Ryan was different. He wasn't speaking from desire alone, he was speaking from a place of respect and intention. "She's strong," Daniel said, almost in a whisper, "stronger than most. And sometimes I worry that my protection has made her hesitate to let anyone in." Ryan nodded knowingly. Strength doesn't mean pushing everyone away. It means being selective about who matters. I want to be the person she can let in without fear, someone who shows that it's safe to trust and love fully. Daniel looked down at his hands for a moment, realizing that Ryan's perspective echoed lessons he had hoped Emma would learn from him, that love was about partnership, respect, and commitment, not ownership or dominance. The soft light falling through the window caught the edge of Ryan's face, making his expression seem earnest, unwavering. Daniel could almost see Emma reflected in him, not just her laughter or smile, but the depth of her heart, her quiet fears, her longing for someone who would stand by her through life's unpredictability. "Do you know what it means to stay?" Daniel asked, his tone almost conversational, though the weight behind it was immense. Ryan's answer was simple but firm. "It means showing up when life is messy, when things are uncertain, when feelings are complicated. It means being present for the person you love, even if they aren't ready to lean on you fully yet." Daniel felt the meaning of those words settle in his chest. For years, he had believed that staying was about protecting, about holding on so nothing bad could touch those you loved. But Ryan spoke of staying as a choice, as a promise, as a commitment not to dominate but to support, not to overshadow but to accompany. "You understand more than most young men do," Daniel said, a note of respect in his voice. Ryan only nodded, looking calm, aware, and unassuming. "I've had guidance," he said quietly, "and I've watched the people I love. I've seen what works and what doesn't, and I choose to do what matters for Emma, not for me." That selflessness, framed not as sacrifice but as conscious care, struck Daniel more than words could express. For a brief moment, he imagined letting his guard down, trusting that his daughter could be happy with someone who genuinely respected her. "I can't promise perfection," Ryan continued, "but I can promise I won't walk away when it's hard. I won't abandon her when life gets messy. That's my choice." Daniel's chest swelled with an emotion he couldn't name, relief, pride, perhaps the faint glimmer of hope. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, light enough that the sunlight began to shimmer on the wet streets, as if echoing the cautious optimism building inside him. Daniel realized the cafe had become more than just a meeting spot, it had become a quiet arena where trust, intention, and understanding were tested without grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Ryan's words were small, measured, but they carried weight that Daniel had longed to hear from anyone entering Emma's life. They were not just statements about love, they were commitments, reflections of character, and the beginnings of a promise that could protect his daughter in ways he never could alone. Daniel's mind raced with memories, fears, hopes, and slowly, an acknowledgement that perhaps Ryan could indeed be the kind of person worthy of Emma's trust. For the first time in a long while, he felt the possibility that someone else could stand beside his daughter, not to replace him, but to complement the foundation he had built with care, patience, and unwavering presence. The cafe's soft hum faded into the background as the weight of understanding settled between them, and Daniel felt that this conversation, quiet and intentional, had shifted something inside him. He realized that love wasn't about preventing hurt, nor about controlling the future. It was about guiding, trusting, and allowing the people you cherish to grow with someone who understood the meaning of staying. As the afternoon edged toward evening, the soft light reflected in Daniel's eyes as he studied Ryan once more, and he recognized that perhaps his daughter's heart had found someone not only capable of caring but of committing fully, patiently, and sincerely, a thought that brought both relief and quiet hope that Emma's future might be brighter than he had dared to imagine. The cafe's soft murmur had faded completely by the time Daniel and Ryan stood to leave, the afternoon rain giving way to a calm, glimmering evening where the streetlights reflected on the wet pavement like tiny stars. Outside, the air smelled fresh, carrying a subtle warmth after the storm, and for a moment, Daniel noticed how ordinary and beautiful life felt when he wasn't bracing for trouble. Ryan extended his hand with quiet confidence. "Thank you for meeting me," he said sincerely, and Daniel grasped it firmly, feeling the weight of those words more than the handshake itself. "She's my whole heart," Daniel replied softly, almost reverently, and for the first time that day, there was no edge of tension in his voice, only honesty. Ryan nodded, his eyes steady and calm. "I won't forget this conversation," he said. Then, as if compelled by the truth he had been carrying all afternoon, he added something that lingered, fragile yet striking. "Emma doesn't need someone to save her. She just needs someone who won't leave." Daniel's throat tightened, an unexpected mix of emotion, relief, hope, a subtle pride, filling the space he had long kept guarded. For years, his role had been to protect Emma from the heartbreak and disappointments that life inevitably brought, to be the constant presence she could rely on when the world turned uncertain. Yet in that single sentence, Ryan reframed everything. Love was not about shielding, it was about being steadfast. Daniel watched Ryan walk down the glistening sidewalk with measured steps, realizing that letting Emma grow did not mean losing her. It meant trusting that she had chosen someone capable of understanding the value of staying. When Emma arrived home later, hesitant and uncertain, she asked the question that had been weighing on her all day, "So, what did you think of him?" Daniel smiled, a soft, quiet smile born of reflection and acceptance. "I think," he said slowly, choosing each word with care, "he understands what it means to stay." Emma's shoulders relaxed, a sigh of relief escaping her as joy flickered in her eyes, gentle and grateful. Alone that evening, Daniel sat in his living room, the quiet hum of the house surrounding him, and replayed the afternoon in his mind, the measured words, the calm sincerity, the intentions Ryan had shared. They echoed, each statement layered with respect, commitment, and patience, and Daniel realized that this meeting had not only shaped his perception of Ryan but reminded him of the lessons he had tried to teach Emma himself, that love was about presence, about trust, about consistency, and about showing up even when uncertainty loomed. He remembered his own past, the love he had once given, the grief he had endured, the quiet victories of staying through life's hardest moments, and realized that those experiences were mirrored in Ryan's words, a continuation of a legacy of care that Emma could now rely on. Daniel understood that letting go was not surrendering control but embracing hope for his daughter's future. Watching Emma's choices, observing Ryan's commitment, and reflecting on the gentle, steady love that had carried him through years of raising her, he felt a profound shift within himself. The cafe conversation, simple yet powerful, had redefined trust, showing him that someone else could love Emma deeply while honoring the foundations he had laid, and that realization was both humbling and comforting. The evening light streamed through the window, painting the room in soft gold tones, and Daniel felt a quiet joy, the kind that comes from knowing a child is seen, protected, and cherished by someone who respects the heart she carries. He realized that Ryan's promise to stand beside Emma, to be consistent, and to never leave, was not just words, it was a reflection of character, of values, and of a commitment that echoed Daniel's own approach to love. Sitting there, Daniel understood that true love was not about preventing hurt, controlling outcomes, or guarding hearts from every possible risk. It was about nurturing, trusting, and allowing the people we cherish to grow with those who honored their worth. And as night fell over Portland, casting a gentle glow over the streets and rooftops, Daniel Harper felt a peace he hadn't known he was capable of feeling, a reassurance that his daughter had found someone who understood the depth of commitment, and that his role as her father could now evolve from protector to observer, quietly grateful that she had chosen wisely, and that love, steady and intentional, had found its place beside her.